axle housing looks pretty good. We brought this home from the strippers the other day. We wire brushed it, got a scraper out, scraped all the grease off of it, washed it down with mineral spirits. Then we took grease and wax remover, washed it down in preparation for the paint. Took an air gun and we blew it dry, took it outside, and we sprayed this black chassis paint on it. It's kind of a primer black. You don't have to prime it first. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to take this pinion flange off and we're going to replace the pinion seal. When we get finished with that, we're going to pull the brake drums off and replace the axle seals. Then we're going to overhaul the brakes, put new brake shoes on it, overhaul the wheel cylinders. We'll have this whole axle ready to go back in the chassis when we get it back from the stripper. So let's start taking this off. This had a cotter pin in it, already took it out. Next thing we're going to do is pry this pinion seal out here. Boy, that was a job. They're normally not that hard to do. We've got the new seal here. Any seal like this, it's a leather seal, should be soaked in oil, in a lightweight oil, for about 30 minutes before you put it in. It'll soften it up. And you kind of want to roll it around and loosen it up and soften it up and smooth it out so it fits on that shaft without any distortion. Well, we're ready to go in. This seal actually doesn't seal around this shaft. It seals on that pinion flange. It should tap right in there. There we go. Next thing we need to do is put the flange back in it. We want to make sure that the area that this seal rides on is good. You can see this brown mark around this flange where this seal rides. A lot of times that seal will actually dig a groove in here. And when it does, it just won't seal anymore. But this is smooth. No problem. We can put this back on. I know it won't leak. We'll slide it right back in here. It fits right up on these splines. We'll put our washer on. Put our nut in it. I'm not quite through with this yet. We've got to get a torque wrench, and we have to pull this up anywhere from about 140 to 300 foot-pounds. And after we do, we'll put a cotter key in there. But I'm going to hold off for a minute until I get the axles done. As soon as we pull the two axles out, we also want to torque those. So our next job is to pull the brake drums off, and we'll put some seals in there. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to take this axle nut off. We're going to turn it around, put the castle part in so that we can protect this axle. And we're just going to put it even right here with the axle. This puller here, you can rent these at most tool rental places. This hub and drum assembly fits on a tapered axle shaft with a keyway in it. There's other types. General Motors uses a type that's got an axle with a flange like this on it. And the drum slips right over the lug bolts. A lot of times it's not held on with nothing but the lug nuts and the wheel. You can just take the lug nuts and wheel off and make sure it don't have any little clips and just slip it right off. This is a little different. A drum like this can be very difficult sometimes to get off, especially after it's been on there for 30 years, 40 years. There it popped. It's loose. We'll go ahead and take this off. Next thing we're going to do is take these 4 nuts off here so that we can slide this backing plate off to get to the seal. And I might give you a tip too. These old brake linings were asbestos, and there's a lot of asbestos dust in there. If you're going to fool with the brakes, blow them off or clean them. Make sure you put a mask on. I was wrong. There's 5 bolts. And here's our rear axle seal. This seal rides right here on this axle shaft. And it looks good and smooth too. You notice there's some shims in here. They're in there to set the preload on this bearing. So make sure if you take them off that you mark them and put the same shims back in the same spot. Next, we're going to pry this old seal out and install the new seal. And we'll slip this back on for the time being, but we're not going to tighten it up because we got to work on the brakes. Ray, you want to give me a hand here? Take a punch and knock that out. Oh, that was easy. Let me wipe that out a little bit. And the new seals, oh, you got it? Okay. Let me see that a minute, Ray. These seals, as you can see here, see this edge? You notice over here, this seal kind of tapers like this. This edge always goes towards the grease. So let's go ahead and put this in, Ray. We're going to stick this back on for the time being, but I'm not going to bolt it up because it's much easier to do these brakes with this laying on the workbench. So just to keep it out of my way, I'm just going to slip it back up on here. We get the other side and we'll have all 3 seals in. We'll change the grease in the rear end and put some brakes on it, and this axle is ready to go.